All right, guys, here we go. The next chapter of World War III has officially begun. I warned people a week ago that there was an assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin using a drone that was strapped with 17 kilos of C4 intended for a region where he was supposed to visit that day. Now, that story was only talked about by one German news agency called Bild, that is a reputable news agency as far as mainstream news goes. However, it was chalked up to be a tabloid agency by the likes of Zero Hedge and many other Putin apologists, if you will, Putin sympathizers. And at the time, I thought to myself, no, this looks legit. This seems quite legit. This was a clear-cut assassination attempt. Did it have any hope in hell of succeeding? No. Very unlikely that something like that is ever going to succeed. It may at some point. They might catch him walking out to his car at some point. That's all it's going to take. But it occurred to me then that this war had reached a new level of escalation. Understand that the assassination of leaders is what leads to world wars, and Russia has explicitly stated that if our leader is assassinated, we will nuke the country responsible. They will use a nuke on the country responsible. Now, today rolls around, and every mainstream media is echoing what the Kremlin is saying, in that this was, in fact, a legitimate assassination attempt. Now, the last one, the Ukrainian Secret Service claimed responsibility, according to the German tabloid news agency Bild. Today, they're not doing that. Today, they're saying this was the work of partisans, defectors, anti-Russian Russians, so to speak. People who want to see Putin out of power. I really don't know what they're thinking with that, because if Putin goes out of power, somebody far more hawkish is going to enter his role, and they're going to be far less long-form strategic. The Russians have been anticipating this, and this is the scary part for most people who, like me, and I'm guilty of this, we're very myopic in our estimations of how the situation is going to unfold. We can think weeks out, maybe months out. It's kind of like a near-term bias for catastrophe, that you think that catastrophe is going to happen within your timeline, when in fact a lot of the military strategists of the world know that things happen on scales of years as opposed to weeks and months. So if you want to know what's coming in the next few months, next few years, look at where militaries are starting to position themselves today, because that's likely where things are going to pop off in the future. And we should have known, with Moscow setting up this multi-layered air defense system over the past 6 months, first the guns and the S-300, 400, 500, and now you're seeing more and more drone attacks who have as their target Vladimir Putin himself. They knew that this was going to reach this level. So ask yourself this question. How far do they think that this is going to escalate? Do they actually think that this is going to escalate into a full-on war with NATO, a full-on conventional war to start? It appears as though they've been holding back a lot of their forces in anticipation of this war reaching a new level of intensity. Now, as I said, this was not the first assassination attempt, and it certainly won't be the last. Moscow has banned the use of drones in and around the region. A lot of people say, well, how could they not see these drones? Well, they're small. They might have small radar signatures. They might not always be able to get to them in time, but now that they're going to be on the lookout, you're likely going to see less and less successful drones getting less and less close to their final destination. And of course, they have planes flying around Moscow, so you can't just be shooting stuff up into the air. And that kind of miscalculation could be a global tragedy if you take down a civilian plane or something like that. So, but understand that the train derailments that have been happening, the explosions on Russian critical infrastructure just in the past few days, there's been 2 successful sabotage acts on Russian railways carrying various dangerous goods. There has been several attacks just in the last 12 hours here on more oil refineries. And the reasons why the Ukrainians like to target the oil refineries is because they're great optics. It's easy. It's a good use. It's not consequential in terms of limiting Russia's ability to wage war, because Russia virtually has an unlimited supply of oil. It might restrict their exports a little bit, but it's never going to affect their ability to fuel their tanks. But it's great optics. It's one of the easiest targets in terms of, with the biggest yield in terms of PR return, because you have this huge plume of black smoke, you know, reaching out for days on end that can be seen for miles and miles. So it looks as though Ukrainian is on the initiative and that they're not on the back foot, as they are right now in Bakhmut. Now, with respect to the Bakhmut situation, this is why a lot of people are thinking that the counteroffensive has to start any day now, is because the Ukrainians are they're a few blocks away from being pushed back out of Bakhmut. Now, they will likely perpetually shell Bakhmut from the countryside, and so they can always say, well, we're still in the fight. But Bakhmut has essentially fallen at this point. There's like a few square kilometers of buildings, and they're going block to block, that have yet to be taken over by the Wagner group, as far as I know. And I'm just getting this information from the same places everybody else gets it, because I'm not there, obviously. So they need to start this counteroffensive very, very soon. So these assassination attempts, these sabotage attempts, these oil depot attacks are all just collectively more optics to make it appear as though the Ukrainians are not on the back foot, in order to continue support for the conflict. Now, understand what else has happened with respect to our media here, okay? Our media is about to be potentially regulated into irrelevance by the government. By our, I mean the Canadian government, but it's also happening in the States, where it appears very timely that people like Tucker Carlson have been deplatformed. I do not agree with Tucker Carlson about a lot of things. Obviously, we share a similar anti-war sentiment, and he has been effectively deplatformed, so to speak. I don't know if you can really call it that, because we don't know where he's going to go yet. His numbers could grow astronomically as a result of all these offers he's getting. But that and Bill C-11 passing here in Canada seem to coincide with the intensification of this war. Remember what I just told you about how they anticipated these attacks months ago. Our media and our military planners anticipate that the war with Russia and China is coming, and they need to get control of the narrative, right? Because that's the only way you're going to be able to maintain. I didn't realize it, but I didn't realize how much of an echo chamber we're in. But I went looking for war map stuff, and there's these channels out there who are just, you know, singing the praises of the Ukrainian military, and they're getting 1 million views every single video, and all they're really doing is just reiterating talking points from Ukrainska Pravda or Ukrinform or Ukrainian News Agency, and this stuff is being pushed to the masses, but it's walled off from our more moderate, how could I say, middle of the road perspectives on this issue, where we're not trying to necessarily take a side, or although we see perhaps the injustice of things that have happened, we're trying to look at the situation objectively, but they're really trying to keep these two worlds segregated, the algorithm, I mean. So this is exactly what you would see in the run-up to a major conflict. They want to get a hold of the narrative. Bill C-11 is going to regulate social media. And I quite frankly don't know how much time I have left to come on here and talk about stuff like this. I've made several videos in anticipation of the fact that at some point in time, videos or channels like mine might be deranked and delisted. We already sort of are. There's very few of our videos that get pushed out to a larger audience. Most of our videos are only seen by our subscribers, which I is fine for me because you subscribe to the channel. But of course, that drastically minimizes getting these more moderate appraisals of the situation out there. And I heard Ray Dalio, a quote from him yesterday, where he said that, during the French Revolution, it was those people on the fence who got the guillotine first. So maybe I better pick a side here. Anyways, Ukraine is moving troops every 2 to 3 days in and around the Transnistria region. That's the place that houses one of the largest ammunition depots. Apparently they have 3,000 to 4,000 troops, and they're moving these troops to different positions in and around that region every few days to kind of keep the Russians guessing as to where they're going to make their attack from, because it's like they're trying to outflank, really, is what they're trying to do. According to the Wagner head, the offensive in Ukraine has already begun, and it started with Ukraine aviation attacks, which have ramped up, and of course these attacks on the oil depots and all this stuff. Now the very pro-Kremlin crowd is saying, look, Ukraine doesn't have the ability to stage this counteroffensive, in spite of the fact that the West is pressuring them to do so before they lose Bakhmut, because you don't want to lose the support of the population. You want that Pyrrhic victory to remain in Bakhmut at least as long as you can start the counteroffensive. But we just don't really know. We don't know what the West has up their sleeve, what Russia has up their sleeve. What we do know is that eventually Russia is going to retaliate. The question is, are they going to retaliate against Zelensky for this? Are they going to deploy some new type of ordnance? Obviously, there's been some very sensational attacks on Ukrainian ammo depots, facilities that looked like nuclear detonations. They weren't. They were very similar to the detonation that took place in, I believe it was Lebanon in 2020, where the city blew up because it was a bunch of chemicals being stored there. But it wasn't a nuke. It looks like a nuke on the video, though. But, we're likely to see more of these kinetic energy, hypersonic missile type major explosions, thermobaric explosions, and possibly even nuclear explosions. So I'm going to do a deeper dive into this later on. I just wanted to touch base. I apologize for my absence the last couple days. I needed some time to let things percolate and gestate a bit, and I was having a conversation with one Dr. Brian Keating, who's a world-renowned physicist. And just for perspective, his last interview was with Jordan Peterson, and that was a 2-hour-long interview. So my brain is broken as a result of that. It was an amazing discussion, and you guys are really going to enjoy it, I think. And but I just needed some time to kind of let things settle and try to figure out, get my bearings on stuff, because I don't want to be one of these people that just comes out and reads the news. I want to be offering you something of a unique value, a unique analysis that you might not find anywhere else. And it's my assessment that right now, if we are at the point where we're attempting to assassinate global leaders, then this thing is all of our fears have been confirmed just on the basis of that alone. And that is not a good thing, which is why it's very imperative that you don't just wait for doom and gloom news. I've been getting messages, hey, where's my daily dose of doom and gloom? Okay, I appreciate you watching the videos, but guys, I'm deadly serious. You need to be working on yourself right now. This is the time to be working on yourself. This is the time for self-mastery in all domains, so that you can be best prepared if this thing does take a wild turn for the worse, which it very well could. All right, we're going to talk in a few hours. Take care. Thanks for watching.